Hi, welcome to the show today. As you know, if you like the show, please share it with your friends. We don't have, any budget for advertising or spreading the show around. I pretty much just post it to my socials. So if you'd like other people to hear it or you think my opinion's worth spreading around, please share this with your friends. Also, if you've got questions, topics, something you want my perspective on, feel free to just get a hold of me. Reach out. You can message me on all the social medias, and I'm pretty much available. All right, let's get into it today. So, gosh, the rioting and looting just keeps continuing. I want to dispel a couple quick myths. I just want to get it out there. So if you're a news watcher, you watch the headlines, whatever it is, maybe you're not totally deep in the news all the time, seeing the retractions and things like that. There was a fake news story that went out about President Trump that when he had the press conference 2 days ago after the rioting in D.C., when the Iranians and the Chinese, which we have on videotape, we have played the video, we've heard the Chinese, we've heard the Iranian outside of the White House pushing against the gate. 60 Secret Service agents were injured the first night and 50 last night, the night before. So they burnt the church across the street from the Capitol, from the White House in Lafayette there. Anyways, Donald Trump went out, walked over there, a lot of controversy. The Parks Department is in charge of that area. The Parks Department cleared the area of protesters. They have on video rocks and things being thrown in broad daylight at the Parks Department, and so they cleared the area. They did not use tear gas. No tear gas. They used smoke bombs. There is a difference. There's a difference in the way it's deployed and how it's used. They used smoke bombs, and they also did not coordinate with the Trump White House. They did that because the protesters were unruly and needed to go. Trump just flat out walked across the White House. The Secret Service was not told that they were going to do that. He just did it. Anyway, so that's been in the news, fake story. And again, fake news travels around the world before the retraction even gets its pants on. All right, so that's what we've got going on. Another thing, too, that I wanted to read. This is from Laura Logan. So Laura Logan is an award-winning journalist. Maybe some of you have heard of her. She's got pretty much every award there is that there is. So this is what Laura Logan wrote today. She said, "This is what the New York Times and others want everyone to believe is a, quote, conspiracy theory. They came up with, quote, data to support their argument. Problem is what they're saying isn't true. Here's the action plan for the people you see in black on every street where there are riots." This is a publication from the people who are organizing most of these protests. And let me read these 10 points of action. If this were the animal farm, this would be what we were painting on the side of the barn. These would be our rules. This is the rules for the future animal farm. This is what is coming. If the looters and rioters succeed in overthrowing our government, which is what they are trying to do. They are trying to extend a coup. This is the violent part of the coup, and I'm going to take you all the way back to the origins today. 1, liberation will be won by any means necessary. Any means necessary. 2, we will destroy the state, police, military, corporations, and all those who run the American plantation. Destroy. We will live with dignity in a world without prisons. Okay? 4, systems of punishment will be abolished. There will be no law to enforce, no money to protect. Man, this sounds like Lord of the Flies. 5, revolutionary justice will be determined by those who are oppressed. So the oppressors will determine justice. Now, keep in mind, it's not the actual people that are oppressed. It's not the actual homosexuals. It's not the actual minorities. It's the people who fight against the existing government who feel oppressed, who then when they win are going to establish their justice. They don't care about us peasants. Us peasants, we're just pawns. We're just figures in all of this. It means nothing. So when they say revolutionary justice will be determined by those who are oppressed, guess what? If you're oppressed today, you're dead in the next regime. They don't want you, okay? That's not what... Okay, 6, there will be no government. No person or group will have power over another until you band together, get some guns, force your will, take what you want. Okay, that's 6. 7, communities will make decisions about how they live and will make sure that everyone has what they need to live a dignified life. Who's making those decisions? When they say communities, is this a democracy? Are we talking Athenian democracy? Are we talking representative government? Or are we just talking about thug justice? 8, land is not property. It is alive, communal, and must be protected. Man, Property rights. Okay. 9, alongside international comrades, we will destroy all borders for the free movement of people everywhere. Okay, so it's an international organization here because you're working with outside comrades. 10, and they use the word comrades. I love that. 10. Of course, by the time you get to the 9th bullet point on this 10 points of action, you're pretty well in understanding of who these people are, right? Okay, number 10. Militant networks will defend our revolutionary communities. Liberation begins where America dies. This is what they are organizing around. And if you don't believe me, listen here. So yesterday, this is what an activist, George Floyd's sister, I believe this is, she might correct me. This is what she has to say about what she's trying to accomplish.
Do your job. Do what you say this country is supposed to be about, the land of the free for all. It has not been free for black people, and we are tired. Don't talk to us about looting. Y'all are the looters. America has looted black people. America looted the Native Americans when they first came here. Learned it from you. We learned violence from you. We learned violence from you. The violence was what we learned from you. So if you want us to do better, then damn it, you do better.
Now, you may or may not agree with that, but I personally think violence is the state of nature. So when they say you learn violence from you learned violence from nature. You learned violence from your fatherless homes. You didn't learn it from my dad. You didn't learn it from my mom. Okay, you didn't learn it from my grandpa. You didn't learn it from my grandma. You learned it from your parents, and you learned it from your communities. And I'm pointing the finger at the class of us peasants, not at the race. That's irrelevant. Okay? Now, so that's one person. She's got a voice. She's protesting. Okay, here's what else we're up against. This was just a random woman pulled off the street in a random TV interview on live TV. This is an educated woman. This is a woman who looks intelligent, looks bright. She looks like every soccer mom that you would run into at the local park. Okay, this is our neighbor. I want you to hear how she describes what she's doing.
It's okay, but I see so many diverse faces in the crowd.
I mean, I'm a black mother and I'm a social studies teacher and I'm raising a black son in America, so I have no choice but to fight.
She's a black social studies teacher. She's in charge of kids' education in this community. Okay? Remember the 10 things I just read you. Remember where we're headed. This is the goal. This is where we're taking us. We're at war, folks. We're at forks in war, and that's their manifesto. That's their rallying cry. So what does she have to say about it? This is an influential lady in her community. She's a sociology teacher, someone who gets to take the time to break down these situations and gear people's brains to think about these topics, right? Sociology teacher.
Well, that's all I can do.
Now, are you going to obey the curfew tonight?
I have no choice. I got to go home to my son, of course.
Okay, like a good mom.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But, what about some of the people who say that the riots and the looting are overshadowing the overall message that people are trying to
convey? The white mobs came and rioted in Tulsa and did the same shit. Oh, excuse my language, but I'm just saying, what's the difference? The government gave $1,200 to people to survive on in March. What you thought was going to happen? You took summer youth away from the youth. What you thought was going to happen? They need jobs. Feed our babies, and we wouldn't have this problem.
So you think a lot of this is born out of...
She's blaming the protesting on COVID, the lack of stimulus money, right? No jobs, nothing to do. He took our summers away from our babies. What else are they going to do?
Yes, they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And this is what sick and tired looks like. Unfortunately, these are multi-billion-dollar corporations that got insurance. So, no offense, but they'll be all right.
What about some of the mom and pop stores on Fordham Road that are owned by people of color?
Define owned by people of color, because the banks actually run those businesses. So they could be a mom and pop store, but there's probably someone else that is not of their color funding their business.
All right, I got your point loud and clear.
Wow. They're probably run by people not of their color, the bankers. Guys, look, I need the bankers. I need them. I need them to lend money. I need them to create money. I need them to create that wealth so that I can go out and build people houses, so that I can create value for people, so that I can have that cash flow, that sweet nectar of money to pay my bills, to feed my 5 kids. Really, I have 5 kids. It's nuts. It's like an orphanage at my house, except there's 2 parents. Okay, it's important, okay? This is a teacher. She doesn't understand our system. She sees the problems with it, but she blames it on, she wants to bring it down completely. And you know what? I don't know that she's totally wrong, but I'll tell you this, looting and rioting ain't right, because it's, just blaming it on insurance. I put a post on a community Facebook page yesterday about the concern, because here at my office, across the street from the office, there was a protest, and people were boarding up their windows. I was like, hey, we should be really concerned in our little small town community that businesses feel like they have to board up windows, right? This is highly concerning. 600, almost 700 comments later, I could not believe how split and divisive and how much hate there was in my community, okay? My community is full of people like this woman, educated, college educated. She's a teacher. She's a sociology professor. She knows what's up. She speaks with some authority. This is a class war described as a race war. This woman knows she ain't really marching for race. She's marching for the manifesto that I read to you at the beginning. That's why she's marching. Break the banks. Oh, looters, well, the mom pop stores, they're insured. Oh, but they're minority owned. Well, the banks that lend them money are not. Wow. We are really there. We are at a total burn it to the ground moment. Wow. We are at a burn it to the ground moment. I'm going to walk us back in time just a little bit. Where are these people coming from? All right. I want to play you. This is from John Solomon Reports. This is just the news, and this is dealing. I need to let the name here. This was the chief police in Ferguson, Missouri. So if you remember, a little throwback, if you remember in Ferguson, Missouri, there were riots. And it was during the Obama administration, and he kind of played with it, and it was just kind of a really ugly time in American politics. But these riots were spreading out from Ferguson, Missouri, and they did spread around the country. Nothing like what we're seeing today. But these groups were established during this time. So listen to what the police chief at that time has to say. They discovered some things about these groups.
It's against police, but there was also several other groups, small groups that had names that escape me for the moment. But one investigative reporter did a story about the funding, and so a lot of these folks were actually being paid to come to Ferguson and protest, and they were being paid by different social justice organizations that were in turn funded by George Soros' organization. So you had these groups that were hiring protesters. Matter of fact, I remember this was kind of funny. At one point, a couple of people came into the police station and asked where they signed up for the protest to get paid. And of course, we told them that that they were in the wrong place.
Yes, I would imagine they were. Wow. So literally, it was a small business.
Yeah, it was. And we had infighting between protesters who were just there, to be part of the moment, and the ones who were getting paid. And that's one of the reasons why they didn't stop. Even in poor weather, there'd be 20 people out front of the station at 10 o'clock at night, and I'd go out there and ask them, well, why are you guys still here? And they said, we're getting paid $15 an hour. So they never stopped, and that's what's going on, I think, here. Not the majority of the people. A lot of them are just young, idealistic kids that are out there. And of course, as in Ferguson, as the protests went on, it became sort of like Woodstock. Everybody wanted to come and be part of the history that was Ferguson. And so now there's a lot of people that are just going to want to go out and be part of the history is, that's the George Floyd protests.
Okay, so he's got it. They saw this firsthand. They weren't looking for it. The investigative journalist did some follow-up, but hey, where do we get paid for the protest? It's freaking pouring down rain in the South, and the protesters are still out. Well, when you're making $15 an hour, you just get your umbrella, buddy. He mentioned where the money was coming from. And we've talked about this a dozen times now on this podcast, in just a handful of episodes. Money's coming from George Soros. So who is George Soros? We keep asking ourselves. Well, I keep uncovering more and more about George Soros. In fact, just since the time I've started doing this podcast, I've become quite disgusted with the man. And I already thought he was the devil incarnate. But you know what? We're going to keep digging, and we're going to keep finding his name, because guess what? It is the reason we are at war. So who is George Soros? Well, let me play you a little 60 Minutes piece from a few years back, and it answers pretty much just that question.
Of all the financial titans and philanthropists of the 20th century, none are more complex or mysterious than George Soros. Like Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, and the Rockefellers, he amassed billions through ruthless business decisions, only to turn around and give away most of his fortune to advance his own personal philosophy. He can move world financial markets simply by voicing an opinion, or destabilize a government by buying and selling its currency. He also pledged more aid last year to help people in Russia than the U.S. government did.
I want to make a point here. So, obviously, here's the description of power. This is 60 Minutes. This is significant. Donated more money to the Russians than the U.S. government. So, keep this in mind. I say this all the time. Remember the names, remember the players, remember the places, right? George Soros donating money in large chunks to Russia, more than the United States government, okay? So, this is a significant amount of money. We know Russia's corrupt. We know Russia's could be bought off. What's he doing with that money? Obviously, it's not probably just going to aid, or maybe you can make that assumption. If he's spending his money in Russia like he's spending it here in America, where's it going here in America? To the protesters. So where could this be going in Russia? To insurgents, maybe fake Russian intelligence information, claim that Trump's colluding with the Russians, whatever.
But now George Soros is worried. He thinks the global economy is coming apart at the seams, and that the world needs to be protected.
This was like 20 years ago.
Like George Soros.
We may now think that everything is fine, but the fact is that the system is broke and it needs fixing.
What you're doing is asking some form of regulation to protect the world against you.
Well, I am a player, and I think all players should be regulated. There have to be rules of the game.
That might sound reasonable.
69,000 YUM.
Right now, his Quantum Group hedge fund moves $14 billion of rich investors' money around the world every day, looking for profits and answering to no one. Soros makes huge bets on whole countries and economies. Last year, when he saw cracks in the Asia boom, he began selling the currency in Thailand. Traders in Hong Kong followed suit, triggering a financial crisis that plunged much of Asia into a depression.
In the last 2 years, you've been blamed for financial collapse of Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Japan, and Russia.
All of the above.
All of the above.
He's smiling so widely when he says that. It's really weird. So that's where George Soros is coming from, right? That's who George Soros is. Crazy rich guy, tons of money, thinks the system's broken, which, you know what? Hey, maybe if he and I sat down for a coffee, we might agree. I think our methods are a little bit different, okay? Now, I want to jump back to the protesters getting paid. So I wanted to come at this two angles. You heard the police chief, two angles, the police chief talk about it, and that, I mean, you got to take that seriously. You can't just brush that off. This next video, you can't really brush off either, although I think people's tendency is to do that. But in light of what you heard on the video about protesters getting paid, this next video should be put just perfectly in context here. I got a whole handful of videos, and it looks like, how could I be so unfortunate as to have not saved this one particular video? Dagnabbit. All right. Well, anyways, it's a protester who is in charge of organizing the protest down in California. And he says, you know, you get paid $15 an hour, and then if you organize and bring other people, you can get paid more. It's like a pyramid scheme. And so he has organized. He said that he has organized pretty much all of the protests in California, and you know, it's made him quote unquote rich. And it's kind of a funny video, and when you watch it, you're like, what? Okay, let's see. I think this is it here. Nope, it's not. Anyways, it's truly mind-boggling. Well, unfortunately, it looks like I didn't save it. Folks, this is a live broadcast, not live for you, but live for me. It's one take, start to finish. I go all the way through it. I don't edit it or anything like that, so every now and then I'll have one of these technical issues, and I apologize. All right, well, I ate up enough airtime looking for it. Okay, so back to the Soros thing. So that's who George Soros is. Multi-billionaire, rich. We've already mentioned a couple different times. I mean, obviously, you can go into a lot of detail. This isn't necessarily a history lesson for George Soros, but that's who George Soros is. Now, we've got a connection to Russia, admitted, okay? We've got the Antifa movement, the overthrow and destabilization of the U.S. government. We've read the quotes from George Soros about how his goal is to bring down the U.S. government. I think his whole idea of equality, or the fact that he's like a have and everybody else is a have-not, leads him to this Marxist ideology that somehow, everybody should be equal except for the few pigs. It really, people who espouse Marxist and socialist views with that utopic viewpoint that don't take into account, anything in the real world, they're kind of scary. Okay, so now let's backtrack a little bit farther. I want to go back to the beginning of George Soros' American political career. Now, he's already participated in politics in other countries at this point, but this is when he finally makes his grand entry into American politics. And I want you to see who introduces him. You'll recognize the voice, I'm sure. Who introduces him, what she says about him. He gets up and realizes all of this goes back to this connection. Everything, we're at war. We've heard Donald Trump say, I'm at war with these people. These people are sick. Who's he talking about?
Not enough for America's future.
That's Hillary.
Some participate and others don't. We have been given an extraordinary blessing. And at this moment in time, our country needs us. And we need people like George Soros, who is fearless and willing to step up when it counts. So please join me in welcoming George Soros.
Got Nancy Pelosi in the front row.
It is the first time that I feel that I need to stand up and do something really and become really engaged in the electoral process in this country.
Really engaged in the electoral process in this country. Now, I believe George Soros is a U.S. citizen. I could be wrong on that. I believe he is now. I think he's of Hungarian descent originally. When he was a teenager during World War II, he actually was taken in by a Nazi. And even though he himself is Jewish, he was taken in by this Nazi family and raised as a teenager because, his family, were unable to raise him, taken, whatever. And he participated in the stealing and the taking of Jewish property. And one of the things he said is he holds no remorse for that because somebody was going to take it. So, why not me? Kind of an attitude. Okay, so there's that connection. You've got George Soros, Hillary Clinton. We've already made these connections. We know they are politically aligned. But all the way back to then, you have this unholy union, okay, with George Soros backing the Clintons politically for years, decades, funding Antifa, funding riots. Oh, here's the video. All right, I want to play. I'm going to backtrack again. It's important for you guys to hear this. It's a little bit longer, but it's critically important. This is the process. It's so in our faces. Because it's an audio program, I can't show you this picture of the Craigslist ads they put out, but guys like this are the ones who put these Craigslist ads out and make it look like they're stupid. But this is really happening.
Asked if there were any paid protesters in the House, and of course everybody shouted no and groaned. But you stood up and indicated that you are a paid protester. What did you mean by that?
Well, I meant, we all get paid to be,
No, I don't know. Please explain.
Well,
He obviously doesn't want to answer here, right? Like he got caught. He paid protester. He's only one in this room, and he knows he's not because he's brought half the people there. And he's like, he's talking to him, and he's kind of being a little coy about it and trying not to spill the beans. But here we go.
It's a difficult thing to explain, but basically, anytime that you're given the opportunity to protest and somebody will pay you to do it, that's twice as good as just doing it on your own time.
So you weren't kidding around. You actually meant that you had...
So this guy's organizing protests that are going to turn violent, doesn't care. He's just a white redneck country boy. Does not look like he sympathizes with Antifa particularly. This is the kind of guy you would see wearing an American flag baseball cap. White, blue-eyed, blonde, right? He's not doing it for the ideology, but we know where this is going.
Been paid at some point to protest?
Yeah,
How can I get in on that?
Yeah, okay, so, you go to, GeorgeSoros.com, and you just sign up right there. You put your name in, you put your email address, and there's an empty box there where you say how many times you're willing to protest and how much you want to get paid.
And you get a check directly from Soros.
Directly from Soros.
That's incredible.
Signed by him. He even invited me to lunch.
Does he sign it in blood?
He said if I'm willing to like gather some more friends, I can get paid like twice as much for every friend that I gather, and kind of set up a pyramid scheme.
And you can get rich just based on protesting for Soros, right?
I already have, yeah. So basically, I've been organizing most of the protesting that you see in California so far, and it's all due to being paid. If I wasn't paid, I would be, like skiing. Why?
This is unbelievable.
Yeah, I know. I just wish more people knew about it, because then we could actually like start a movement.
Okay, thanks a lot, man.
Yeah.
I wish more people knew about it so we could, start a movement. Oh, buddy, you got a movement going. You got one going, and you got your 10 points. We know where we're going. This is crazy. Okay, we've got no justice in America, right? It's okay. I posted this on my Twitter earlier today. This is it just pains me. Like, there's just certain things that hurt so bad to admit are happening. So Fox News runs a piece this morning. An armed man allegedly dressed as a National Guard soldier in Los Angeles. So this guy who's like an airsoft fanatic has an AR-15 in a sidearm, and he gets all dressed up in full battle rattle and shows up in formation with the National Guard in L.A. Literally gets in line, gets in formation. He gets called out by other soldiers because essentially he has too much gear on. He's over-geared up for what they're doing. He's got not only his rifle, but he also has a sidearm, which most soldiers don't deploy with two weapons. It's one or the other. So he had both weapons. He was using an AR-15 and not an M16 or an M4. Hey, all the people who hate guns, there's a difference, and it can be spotted. An AR-15 is simply just a plink gun. It's semi-auto, just looks a little aggressive. An M4, M16 have 3-round automatic machine gun bursts and can switch to single shot. They're a different gun, and while they look similar and they function similar and they're interchangeable in some degree, they are different guns. And these guys pointed it out. Anyways, this man who really was just trying to help his community, and they even said he had no intention of hurting anybody other than to defend his community, $50,000 bond. $50,000 bond. Now, keep in mind, this is from the same city who has been dumping their prisons during the COVID crisis, and also from the same city who is letting looters literally in the front door at booking and out the back door at their county facility there. So, yeah, $50,000 bond for a guy who ultimately just wants to protect his community, while the actual police and National Guard stand feckless by while LA is razed and burned to the ground. Yeah, no, it's perfect. I love it. Okay, so is justice coming? Okay, we live in a country where we just have this unequal application of justice. We have an unequal application of the law, and hopefully today might be the day that we get to the bottom of the injustice at the top. The injustice in this country has spread like a cancer from a couple bad apples and cops and a couple corrupt officials at the local level to corrupt officials at the state level to corrupt officials at the federal level to corrupt people at the international level. And they've tied in. They're in cahoots. When you hear the mayor of Chicago say things like, only people should govern that have signed on to the New World Order, good governance, that's Agenda 21. When you see Mayor Jenny Durkin encouraging looters and rioters and protesters and saying that we need to, remodel our society, that's Agenda 21. This is an absolute disgusting, in our face. There are no coincidences. The party of Davos, the globalists, they are in your grill. They are in your face all the time. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to figure this stuff out. You don't at all. You don't have to listen to Alex Jones. You don't have to do anything. You just got to follow the news and follow the current events. There is a direct line from the president's desk and the president's signature to the way you're living your life. You're on quarantine. You're on lockdown. A year ago, you'd have said that was impossible. Our country is being burnt to the ground. There's big cities are being infiltrated by an insurrection of Antifa and Black Lives Matter that are on George Soros' payroll. George Soros, the same man who has propped up Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and George Bush and Barack Obama and their corrupt globalist campaigns for the last 20-something, almost 30 years. That guy. okay, that's paying the protesters in your neighborhoods. I'm sitting in my office with boards on the shops across the street because there was a protest here and there was a fear of violence. That is terrorism. That is terrorism, okay? That corruption, all the way at the top. How could you trust a Justice Department that can't take care of the most basic law and order? That would let an insurrection rise in the United States. We're talking insurrection, the level of which we haven't seen since 1812. This is real, folks. Iranians and Chinese are at the White House gates, being beaten back not by American soldiers, but by Secret Service agents. We're to the point to where the Secret Service agents have to directly defend our president and our White House and our Capitol from insurgents. And the political parties in this country stand around, looking around, acting like nothing's going on, acting like it's just peaceful protests and people have a right and blah, blah, blah. And you know why this stuff is able to get away with? You know why half of our country seems to be okay with it? That it's some kind of justice, like, oh, these white bankers and this corrupt system owes these minorities? Because we have stupid leaders. Sorry for the rant. Stupid leaders. We went from the lowest unemployment in our nation's history to one of the highest unemployment rates in our nation's history in 2 months. They just told us to shut our businesses down, lock down over the scandemic. Or the plandemic, whatever you want to call it. I'm looking at all these pictures of these riots and protests, and I mean, if you're anywhere on the internet or watching TV, it's not like you can avoid them. Oh, I'm pretty sure we're not concerned about COVID, tell you that. 2 weeks, promise you there will not be breakouts. Well, if there are, they will be isolated to New York City, Chicago, St. Louis, and LA. That'll be it. Those will be the only remaining strongholds for coronavirus in this country. And why is that? Because their leadership allows it. Those are the same leaders that allow pallets of bricks to be delivered all over their cities. Same people. All right, today we're going to maybe start the process of justice. When we talk about the process of healing in America, it starts with justice. It starts with justice for George Floyd, and it starts with justice for Donald Trump. There must be justice for the least among us, and there must be justice for the greatest among us. One law. We are equal under the law. That is the entire basis of the West. The status quo for nature is violence. For 150,000 years, the human species in its fully evolved, developed form has been violent, has been brutal. Most reproduction has been caused by rape. That is nature. That is the status quo. But then this revolutionary idea, where you had to find a strong man, find the strongest man in the village and he'll protect you. He'll create a band of men. That's where we were at. Tribal, feudal, rough. Then all of a sudden, some dude came along with the idea, hey, you know what? I think we're all equal. Because as I scan the array of my village here, we all come from the same ancestors. We all have similar skill sets. We all have the ability to learn. We're just different. But we're equal. We're created equal. Might do different things with our life, but we're created equal. Change the world. That idea, change the world. Because if we're equal, then the law should apply to us equal. And why are you the king? What makes you so special? When we get rid of that idea, well, it's at the door. All right. This is Tom Fitton. This is much longer. I might break it up a couple times, but we're going to start wrapping up with this. Today, there are going to be Senate hearings on Rod Rosenstein. We're going to get into that as the days go on. I believe that this is the day where the tide might actually turn, where justice might be served, where we actually might get to the bottom of what happened. So Rod Rosenstein was the deputy director of the DOJ. He essentially was the acting attorney general in all things Russia because Jeff Sessions had recused himself. So these are 10 questions for Rod Rosenstein. Rod Rosenstein is the linchpin. He is the center of the Russia investigation. He appointed Robert Mueller. He had the power to stamp this thing out or to continue it on. And he signed and he was involved both with the wrap up as well as with the before the investigation got started when it was originally opened. So here are 10 questions for Rod Rosenstein today, and we'll see if any of these get asked. I'll come back and report to you. So we're going to do this, and then we're going to watch a video. Did Rod Rosenstein read the FISA warrant renewal he signed in the summer of 2017 against Carter Page? Review any evidence supporting it or ask the FBI any questions about the case before affixing his signature. He signed an illegal warrant that had no predication, had no probable cause. Absolutely confirmed. The FISA has confirmed it, and Horowitz confirmed it. No questions asked. 2, does the former number 2 DOJ official now believe the FISA was so flawed that it should never have been submitted to the court? Does he regret signing it? It was wrong. It was illegal. He signed it. He sent it in. A man's life was completely destroyed, and our country was run through the ringer. Do you regret it? 3, given that he now knows about flaws with the Steele dossier, totally fake, Russia disinformation, the FBI probe, would Rosenstein have approved Robert Mueller as Russia special counsel if given a do-over? Whew, that's a good question. See, Robert Mueller kind of has the Biden thing going on with a little bit of a dementia. He's kind of losing his rocker, isn't so sharp. Very end of his career should have been over. He was already retired. They brought him back in to run this investigation, which he pretty much turned over to his lieutenant, Weissman. Weissman is the person who did the Enron investigations and got 80,000 employees from Arthur Andersen fired over something that was completely wrong that the Supreme Court turned over 9-0. Guy should never be practicing law. 9-0 Supreme Court in our modern political age. They said everything you did was wrong in this case, and 80,000 people lost their jobs. All right. Number 4, did Rosenstein engage in a conversation with FBI Director Andrew McCabe in 2017 about wearing a wire on President Trump as part of the plot to remove the 45th president from the office under the 25th Amendment? Oh, man, what if Rod Rosenstein works with Hillary Clinton, who works with George Soros, who's paying the protesters today because they were unable to get this coup going? 5, who drafted and provided the supporting materials that Rosenstein, used to create the scope of investigation memos to guide Mueller's probe? This is important because now that the scope memos are declassified, which they weren't until Grinnell became the acting Department of National Intelligence Director and declassified them, Rod Rosenstein wrote down on paper in a scope memo to Robert Mueller the names of people and then to go investigate if they committed crimes during the Trump campaign. OMG. Here's a name of someone. Go see if they committed a crime. Go sift through their entire lives and find something. That is not American justice. That is called a person in search of a crime, not a crime in search of a person. That is an egregious abuse of the justice system. You want to talk about justice for Floyd? How are we ever going to have confidence in our justice system if we can't even get justice for the president? Okay. Did Rosenstein have any concerns about the conduct of fired FBI Director James Comey and Deputy Director Andrew McCabe as he looks back on their tenure in light of the new evidence that has surfaced? That's a dang good question. When did Rosenstein learn the CIA had identified Page as one of its assets? The guy they were spying on was a CIA informant, or at least, if not a full-on CIA agent, as one of its assets, ruling out that he was a Russian spy because he's an American spy. And that information in Steele's dossier used in the FISA warrant had been debunked or linked to Russian disinformation. Because England had sent a letter to Flynn and Susan Rice saying, hey, the Steele thing is bunk. He's always using Russian disinformation. But they went with it anyways. And they got Flynn a gag order so he couldn't talk. 8, does Rosenstein believe that FISA court was intentionally misled? Or can the glaring missteps be explained by bureaucratic bungling? OMG, folks. How is that possible? Bureaucratic bungling? This is the President of the United States. You want to call it bureaucratic bungling? Oh, my head hurts. Okay. What culpability does Rosenstein assign to himself for the failures of the Russia case he supervised, and what other people does he blame? Absolute total failure. Miscarriage of justice. Got to have some accountability here. If Rod Rosenstein doesn't have some miraculous story about how he's a double agent for the president, and they've got this big thing going on and wrap up the deep state, he's got to go to jail. Rod Rosenstein's got to go to jail. I mean, literally, unless he's somehow opening this thing up, he's got to go to jail. I will be listening to this hearing today on pins and needles, because if this thing breaks to more cover-up, more denials, more gray obscurity and the details aren't clear and it's so long ago and wait, what does it matter now? Can't we just move on? Folks, we're done. Let's write our own manifesto. I'm serious. There's nothing left to defend here. I wouldn't die for this flag. What is that? What is this? What is this? This is just a strongman game. This is just he who holds the most political will and the most money wins. This has nothing to do with justice, equality. The silent majority's got to wake up and knock our country back into shape here like whack. Okay? Donald Trump can't do it alone. He cannot do it alone. And if you don't think that Donald Trump is alone, the Bush family just created a political action committee to support Joe freaking Biden. So our last Republican president didn't endorse Donald Trump, has spoken against him multiple times, he and all of his family members except for his one cousin down in Houston. And now he's actually fundraising for Joe Biden of the Democrats. I want you to think about that for a second. Think about the Biden agenda. Think about what he's actually telling people he's going to do. Raising taxes, taking your guns, Green New Deal, equality, equity, all the buzzwords, all the talking points, nasty deals with China, nasty deals with Iran, seems to just turn a blind eye to foreign issues as long as he and his family are taken care of and whatnot. Because, what do borders matter when you're a billionaire and you can just jump on a plane and go to Fiji for the weekend? Okay? The Bushes are supporting that. Just let that sink in for a minute, okay? Now, what is this all about? This kind of comes down to the justice thing. Let's listen to Rand Paul talk about exactly what it is that has occurred and what it is that we're starting to investigate. If we can fix this, what was taken from us after 9/11, our privacy, if we can fix this, we can get justice for the president. I promise you we can get justice for George Floyd. But if we can't get justice for the president, there is no way we are going to get justice for George Floyd.
The left maintains that then Vice President Joe Biden's unmasking of General Flynn is no big deal. Everybody does it, no harm, no foul. The left argues that it is just fine and dandy to listen to private American phone calls if the American is talking to a target of national security interest. Unmasking essentially is an end run around the Constitution. Why should unmasking be unconstitutional? Because the eavesdropping in the first place was condoned with a less than constitutional standard. If a foreign surveillance order was issued, the standard they use is probable cause that the target is associated with a foreign government, which is not the standard of probable cause of crime that the Fourth Amendment requires. I suspect, though, that the NSA listens to the Russian ambassador with no court order at all. I suspect the NSA simply listens with impunity. While many will not object to having no constraint on listening to foreign nationals, certainly there should be concern about listening to conversations that foreign nationals have with presidents, national security advisors, representatives, businessmen, and even journalists. Unless the conversation includes dialogue planning an imminent attack on the U.S. or treason, it's hard to imagine any national security rationale for unmasking an American, particularly a high-ranking national security advisor. Add in the fact that Biden was eavesdropping on an advisor to his chief political rival. Like most of the abuse of power by the intelligence agencies, the abuse becomes manifest when placed into the political arena and colored with partisan bias. For opponents of concentrated power like myself, the issue isn't just about the Democrat conspiracy to take down Trump. The issue is about unconstitutional eavesdropping. I don't simply want Biden and others prosecuted. I want the system fixed so unmasking doesn't happen short of a real warrant from an Article III constitutional court. Last week, there was much discussing over unmasking, where Obama administration officials flagrantly violated the constitutional rights of American citizens, including those of their political opponents. To be sure, this behavior was abhorrent, and I'll gladly participate in putting this information in public for all to see. Outrage erupted from my friends on the Republican side. How could they have done this? Who let them? Who will pay the price? I'm heartened by this outrage, but will it translate into true action to protect the privacy of American citizens, or is it just faux partisan games? You see, last week we also in the Senate debated legislation dealing with warrantless surveillance and the FISA courts. I'm afraid I didn't hear much about that from many of my GOP colleagues. In fact, most of them voted to continue to give this unconstitutional power to presidents and administrations. This is a mistake. The lesson that we should all be taking away from this is not my political opponents should not be able to spy on me without a warrant. The lesson should be no one should be allowed to spy without a warrant. The difference is not small.
The difference is not small. Is this just faux political games? Rand Paul is a truth slinger, ladies and gentlemen. Rand Paul is awesome. I love Rand Paul. He's been saying the truth since 9/11, and he and his dad are absolute warriors for the cause of civil liberties as well as the cause of fiscal conservatism. I like those guys. Don't agree with every single thing, but by golly, I'd want them in the trenches with me. They don't ever give up. So that's the question, right? If we can't get justice for the president, we're never going to get justice for George Floyd. This is just a class war. It's just going to lead to a fragmented society, a society where we give up more and more power to the government so they can offer more and more security, which they really can't give. We've got stand down orders, step aside orders in New York. I've got so much content. I'm going to start maybe doing like a Saturday wrap up show where I can get to all the stuff that I can't get to in our normal show because there's just so much. Anyways, well, that's what we have today. Let's find out if Rod Rosenstein comes clean. Let's find out if he's straight with us, and it's going to be really interesting. I'm very interested to find out what happened. Now, I want to leave this. This is a much longer segment. It's 4 minutes, so I know it's a little long, and then we're going to wrap up right after. I promise. Maybe.
Last week. So a Friday dump. We had sued for records to the from the Justice Department about.
This is Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch. They are they're always doing Freedom of Information Act lawsuits. They got to the bottom of the Benghazi stuff. Really have kept the heat on. The Clintons have uncovered a lot of stuff. So listen to what he says about Rod Rosenstein in preparation for today's hearings.
That coup discussion that took place between Andrew McCabe and Rod Rosenstein of the Justice Department, where they talked about wearing a wire on the president, invoking the 25th Amendment to remove him from office, and appointing a special counsel. All part of the coup. Rosenstein said he was only being sarcastic, and we have the documents from the Justice Department through this lawsuit, again a lawsuit, not voluntarily disgorged to us, confirming essentially that Rosenstein did make this discussion. He says it was sarcastic, and they had an anonymous source tell the newspapers, the New York Times, that it was sarcastic, but he's never really gone on the record as to what happened. And he had a cagey response about the 25th Amendment discussion, which left open the possibility, and essentially confirming the possibility, that he discussed misusing the 25th Amendment to remove the President of the United States. Well, then we get another document, and this document is a memo written by Andrew McCabe. In many ways, not a reliable witness, but according to the document, it was a contemporaneous recordation written shortly after the meeting that took place on May 16th, 2017, in which the coup was discussed. They didn't call it a coup, but that's what it was. If two generals were meeting, talking about removing the president and wearing a wire on the president in order to justify removing him, you'd call it a coup, wouldn't you? Well, that's what two senior officials in the law enforcement, the acting FBI director, Andrew McCabe at the time, most senior guy in the FBI, acting attorney general for the purposes of this discussion, Rod Rosenstein. Listen to this out of control, contemporaneous recollection of the main topics they discussed. This is McCabe writing. I began by telling him, Rosenstein, they went over to Rosenstein's office. Rosenstein, I forget how it's pronounced. I began by telling him that today I approved the opening of an investigation of President Donald Trump I explained that the purpose of the investigation was to investigate allegations of possible collusion between the president and the Russian government, possible obstruction of justice related to the firing FBI Director James Comey, and possible conspiracy to obstruct justice. The DAG questioned, the DAG being the Deputy Attorney General, Rosenstein, questioned what I meant by collusion, and I explained that I was referring to the investigation of any potential links between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. I explained that counterintelligence investigations of this sort were meant to uncover any existence of any threat to national security, as well as whether or not criminal conduct has occurred. What was the basis for all of this? Counterintelligence investigations are designed to investigate intelligence, foreign governments. You can't use them to do a criminal investigation. And he goes on to say that he was basing this on an interview that Trump had with Lester Holt about the firing of Comey and the memos that Comey illegally kept at his home. He didn't say they were illegally kept, but these are the spy memos that Comey wrote on the president. Comey had them. Why didn't he conduct a criminal investigation of President Trump? Because he knew the memos didn't justify a criminal investigation of President Trump. And they're ticked that their buddy Comey was fired, and they're talking about investigating him in retaliation. Again, whistleblower in chief.
So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.